Okay, let's get started here. A little later than I would have liked, but no big deal. We are live 1/12/2024 Infinite Plane Radio, open phones for open minds and also closed minds. Although we're not here specifically to open up the minds that have been sealed. We're not even trying to wake up the blue pillars from their comfortable dreams. It's almost enviable. Ignorance is bliss of a sort here. But we're entering into an election cycle, and you're going to see a lot of people who are in the blue pill world being agitated. And depending on their political predilections, they'll veer left and go woke, or veer right and go red pill. And one of the topics I've really focused on is the political horseshoe, which I didn't used to believe in. I thought it was an oversimplification, and I thought, there's no way I'm so extreme that I'm in any way like those guys. But now, having taken the off world stage perspective, I can see how that is exactly what happens. I published a post today, Partisan Fears in a Bifurcated Mind War. And let's just start with this. The right is hit with programming leading to vaccine phobia. And I'm speaking generally. If you look at all the pundits, the general attitudes, where they fall, and the left fears viruses, and they see the vaccine as a cure, thanks to their programming. And as you can see, it's pretty split down the middle. The major political positions of the day result from entrainment to propaganda narratives. The facts take a backseat to emotional appeals, with fear being the primary driver. And it's always the common denominator with any of these narratives. If this weren't so, the fear would not be so equally distributed across the spectrum, and each side is programmed to fear the other's position. The right fears a gun grab, the left fears a womb grab. Chemtrail engineering, scapegoats, secret government projects are believed in by the right-leaning anti-government conspiracy types. But the climate change is how the left sees the same thing, but they blame capitalism, therefore the right. My point being, and we could go through hundreds of these, we live within a bifurcated mind war. It is split down the middle. So, auto hoaxer axiom number 47. If the fear is partisan, it's fake. I think it's pretty straightforward. And you're welcome to try to prove me wrong, but for the most part, all we've been presented with in terms of evidence has been hyper realistic drills presented as real. No one has presented anything other than a simulation. Next topic in this blog is censorship theater. Anti vaxxers are not censored. They may be marginalized and pushed off private platforms, but their message is amplified by the critics. It's all censorship theater to create the illusion they are being suppressed, which validates and spurs them on. This is how the mind war is fought. Divide and let them conquer each other. The only real censorship worth discussing is the censorship of anyone auto-hoaxing the MSM's fundamental claims. Auto-hoax content doesn't get into the conversation because the firewall of brainwashed minds reflexively protecting MSM and MSM+. The mainstream media is a rigged game. And ironically, it's not the MSM, the mainstream, but it's the non-auto-hoaxing truthers who are gatekeeping the ultimate truth. In other words, before people arrive at what lies beyond the political horseshoe, if they were to keep going, before they get there, they get blocked by what is essentially a firewall of people saying, no, don't go that far. Don't call it fake. You're saying everything's fake. They misrepresent it. But my point being, they maintain the illusion on behalf of the MSM, which is why I refer to red pill distributors as propaganda mules. Anti-vaxxers sell vaccines, the way anti-Second Amendment activists cause surges in gun sales. The two authorities, there are two of them, left, right, pro, anti. And skepticism, the way that we apply it, is making oneself the sole authority over one's mind. not the screen, which sets the stage for those on the left and right. Choosing the authority on left or right, choosing the pro or anti, is to cede one's own authority over one's. Basically, are you the final arbiter over what you believe, or do you have a blue check that you believe in? When Musk first started putting blue checks for sale for us peasants, some of these elitists were really alarmed. Mark Cuban cried, wept about it on X, and he said, if these poor people can buy blue checks, anybody can. I won't know who to follow. I won't know what to believe. Paraphrasing. But that's how most people are. They're lost in the sea of irrelevance, and we aren't, because we have a raft. We maintain a network that remains above the fray. But the solution to the mind war is not combating info with counter info, but stepping outside of the controlled dialectic altogether. Fear is the only thing holding truthers from taking back authority over their minds. So to them, I would ask, is the correct default position on any psychological operation or suspected event that seems a little fishy? Let's say there's a train derailment in Ohio, and it creates a mushroom cloud, and people say that fish are dying and the rain is toxic. Is the correct default position to say it's real or fake? Are we facing a psychological war and a sophisticated form of mass mind control, or real threats and something to be afraid of? Are we being faked out? Like, these are, I think, important questions to establish something here, because evidence points to the governments of the world using weaponized superstition and mass media for mind control purposes. And they operate on the premise that the fear of the thing is worse than the thing itself. And this makes fear the primary weapon of the power elite. And I believe I'm right about this. And if I'm right about this, then what does this say about the truthers who are propaganda mules, carrying this or that narrative about you should be afraid of this, fear your toaster, fear your 5G tower, fear the cirrus clouds? Truthers don't have evidence for what they fear, other than what comes out of the propaganda rumor mills and who finances those. Therefore, they are psychologically terrorized to the extent that they have been programmed with phobias and moral panic that they carry around and warn people about. That's the very definition of superstition. This is why the default position of the skeptic should always be fake until proven real. And that's not too high a bar. It really is not. The job of the media, if they are in fact media and not mere propaganda mills, is to provide facts to substantiate claims. That's not too much to ask. The fact that we have set our bar so high as to say it's fake until proven real just means that we have high standards. Or rather, we have standards. People who just believe what they're told, what's on the screen, they don't have a mental immune system anymore. They have mind aids. But you, listeners of Infinite Plane Radio, have been inoculated. All right, let's see who has joined us. Elephant Tusks, Peace Circle 360, Zin Velas, We Into the Beyond, Diana South, Frank Murr, Janet Reeves, Ears Up, Oswaldo. Awesome. Okay, great. We have about an hour and 15 minutes possibly, so if you want to call in, the number is 505 349 0420. Kind of open topics, nothing too serious. I guess one of the big developments in terms of channel news is the book tour is kicking off. The first date is going to be 1/19/2024 here at the IPS headquarters. And by book tour, I mean for the rest of 2024, my mission is to get copies of Auto Hoaxology 101 into as many hands as possible. And I'm going to be doing so by taking trips to epicenters of activity where we gather, places where we've met before. But basically, I think that what's going to sell it is going to be a demonstration of the ideas in the context of debate. So, for example, on the 19th, the conversation is going to be about the space station. But all of the claims that I make about the space station and its unbelievability to me are going to be based upon arguments that are explained in the book. Like, I'm rejecting an appeal to authority, for example. Fake until proven real. A number of axioms. The glossary also will probably be cited in defining certain terms, which is also important. Defining terms, eliminating strawmen, misrepresentations of what we're actually doing, but also making the case for the existence of the philosophical crisis as I describe it. That the fact that the consensus worldview is one based on accepting the screen at face value, even if you disagree on it, that alone is the problem. And it's in everybody's faces, literally, and nobody can see it. I call it the digital hoodwink. I often say that the screen is not a window to the world, but a filter. But this has been lost, and I can demonstrate this, and I will demonstrate this. But the first stop is going to be here in Albuquerque. I'm inviting some people who should know what is real and what is fake. I'm talking about computer animating specialists. I'm inviting specific individuals who can help make the case I'm trying to make or debunk it. I want to have debate and discussion and move things forward. But this first one's focus is going to be the space station, which again, 119 is the date that the movie ISS happens to be coming out. I'll probably watch it right before, but it's a movie about space wars and Russia and America fighting in the space station. Okay, let's see what happens. And I saw the trailer. It looked like a lot of nukes, mushroom clouds. I think the Russians fight the Americans for control of the ship, and they start fighting, so it starts rocking, and then it tips over. Actually, it doesn't. It's actually remarkable how smooth the ride is on the ISS. The way it just skips off the residual atmosphere like a rock on a lake, and how whenever it's running out of juice, they send a little resupply module just to bump it. Just tap it like a perpetual motion machine. It's too perfect. All right, let's move on here. Elephant Tusk says, I believe the AI took full control in 2019, the only explanation. Oswaldo says, Doomers be mad if you're not doom cucked like they are. Well, the title of the live stream is The Perpetual Crisis Cycle and Doom Hope. See, I published this article about the partisan fears in a bifurcated mind war. Again, the axiom, just to restate it, if the fear is partisan, it's fake. If only half of the people in the room believe it, and the other half believe something like the exact opposite, and neither is suffering from what the other claims is a real thing, then it's fake. I mean, it's simple. It's a mind war. However, there are still a lot of people out there, corpse clutchers, death clingers, doom boofers, who don't want to let it go. They do not want to let it go. And here is an example. I had said this yesterday. The important thing to remember is that this is, and I'm talking about predictive programming, this is not foreshadowing things that are going to happen for real, but merely preparing people for the fakery to come. So all this predictive programming doesn't mean bad things are coming. It means they're going to fake things. And they're conditioning you to accept the fake things as real. But Lloyd said, this is hopium on your part. In other words, he's asserting that it's hopium for me to think that what is predicted in the entertainment is going to happen for real. Like the Oppenheimer scenario, the mushroom cloud. I'm saying it's going to be fake. It's not hope that it's not going to be fake. The pattern has been established. It is not hopium to predict future events. Forecasts and predictive programming are expected to be fake. It's just not. Fake until proven real is the standard. And this is a pattern we've observed for years together. It's crazy to think how much time we've put into this, but for the better part of 6 or 7 years, a lot of us have been daily applying this fake until proven real methodology, and we have yet to be confronted with anything that upsets our expectations. So, to the contrary, it is the truther who falsely believes the news as reality, who are in fact full of doom hopium. Now, but why? Here's why. The perpetual crisis cycle is meant to hook you in. It's the 24-hour news cycle of abuse, and it involves a lot of ups and downs, ups and downs. But I think the people who hope for the end, who want it to go kinetic, who want S to get real, who want the end, the aliens, JFK on a flying saucer, mushroom clouds, 10 days of darkness, internet blackouts. What they all have in common is they're weary. They're wary of the roller coaster. They want out of this dysfunctional relationship with mass media, and I can understand it. But they don't know that's what it is. They're emotionally and psychologically drained. Like they're just tired of thinking about it and waiting for the big thing. But again, the fear of the thing is worse than the thing itself. I believe that comes from Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals. And the point, I think that's from his list of ways to attain power. But again, the fear of the thing is worse than the thing itself is applicable here. How often have we been told, oh, yeah, this is the World War III about to kick off, or now it's Civil War, and now it's World War III again, now it's Civil War again. Civil War starts in April because there's a movie about it, but World War III was last year, but nobody cares about Zelensky anymore. Like, okay, none of these things have come into fruition. Okay, Saul Alinsky's 12 Rules for Radicals, rule number 9, the threat of the thing is more terrifying than the thing itself. Imagination and ego can dream up many more consequences. This is a book worth reading. Than any activist. Perception is reality. Now, you may know about Saul Alinsky. He is a community organizer. I believe he's probably the originator of the school of thought from which Obama emerged. And this book is often pointed out as a way to understand the radical left. And I think it's true. Something else, too. This book is dedicated to the devil. We'll get into that in a second. Again, the threat of the thing is more terrifying than the thing itself. Imagination and ego can dream up more consequences than the activist. Perception is reality. The possibilities can easily poison the mind and result in demoralization. So there you go. So what we're looking at here is, look, creating in the collective mind the direst conclusions. We're talking about a strategy for ruling people through psychological warfare, basically. And Alinsky made this book available for radicals like, here we go, Hillary Clinton, who also was someone who, I think she gave him a shout out at some point. But yeah, on the dedication page, it acknowledges Lucifer as the original radical who gained his own kingdom. Let me see if I can find something about this. There was a panic attack about it a few days ago. Not a big deal. Satanic panic is actually pretty hot right now. I just saw something a little while ago. Stu Peters is freaking out about that Halloween decoration that some guy knocked over. A far-right broadcaster, Stu Peters, has praised a Christian nationalist activist for destroying a satanic temple display in Iowa's capital in December, declaring that Satanists have no right to mock Christians. The guy who knocked over the Halloween decoration was a speaker at America Fest, 1 degree separated from Trump, brought up there by Jack Pizzagate Posevec. I'm just going to call him Jack Poe. I don't believe he believes anything he says. I'm talking about Jack Posevec from Human Events. Poe, parody of extremism. Okay, here we go. This is Stu Peters, mad about the statue, but look, this is not the conservatives who believe in free speech on principle. I may not agree with what you have to say, but I'll defend your right to say it. No, now it's like, if I don't agree with what you're saying, I'm going to try to censor you and knock over your stuff.
This is Satan mocking us by putting this Baphomet inside of the Iowa Capitol building in Des Moines. That is mockery. That is Satanists and Satan's minions mocking Christians, mocking Christianity, mocking the very value system that this country was founded on, that they then turn around and use as...
Now, this is consistent with MAGA ban. What they want to do is turn America into MAGA-stan, and the MAGA ban's values are basically those of the Taliban. They're constantly mad about women not covering themselves in gyms, And now they're mad about anything Satan, anything offensive to Christianity. They hate Jews and they hate the deep state, which is really saying the great Satan, same thing. But now they want blasphemy laws. They want to have basically some kind of theocratic controls to protect their religion against Halloween decorations. Again, this is the Stu Peter. And one more point: the group that put up this ridiculous ram skull is openly atheistic and not satanic. They don't believe in any of that stuff, and their whole purpose is to troll right wingers.
Their justification. No, we have the right to do this. No, you don't. No, you don't.
You don't have the right to do that. Fascinating. All right, let's see. Joined by our cook G33 Salty Siren says, I've always called it the digital veil. See, that's good. That's really good because we're talking about the screen that, for all intents and purposes, augments our reality. Whether you want it to or not, it's the thing through which the masses have, I think, accepted a consensus version of things. And worldview is way more important a conversation and a topic than shape. I talk about NASA a lot, but NASA's more than just shape and and balls in space. It's really about our worldview, and it's a completely different thing. And I try to make this distinction because when you talk about the shape of the world and you don't talk about how you arrive at your conclusions, you're missing the point. And this is why it's fruitless, it's pointless to even debate such a thing. There's not enough information. And the people who debate in favor of the standard accepted consensus model don't allow into the debates the possibility that movie magic has been used in helping them to accept a worldview. They won't even accept it. But it is a digital veil. I call it the digital hoodwink, a reference to the wool pulled over the eyes of the initiate into the fraternities, whether it's Masonic or all these various Illuminati cults. They all do the same thing. They put a bag over your head, you go into the room, they say, hey, you're ignorant like all the people out there, but you paid your dues, so we're taking the hoodwink off. And then you're shown the light. And that's what we're talking about. Only the hoodwink is the digital veil. And to remove the digital veil is to just say, I no longer trust what is being projected on the screen at face value. I'm not just going to be a mindless believer, but I'm going to demand facts. And because we are not finding a lot of facts to back up a lot of these extraordinary claims, we're left in the position of non believers, which isn't a position that they accept. You got to believe left, believe right, be pro, be, or be anti, but you can't be a non believer. There's no opt out. Why is that? They don't want an opt out because they don't want objectivity. They need people lost in a world of subjective belief systems. The ignorance. That's what the darkness symbolizes. And today, the darkness or the ignorance is foisted upon us by this digital veil. Thundernut6 says, thanks for dropping the book in chat. Been looking for it for my wife. Yeah, Autohoaxology 101 is for sale. Just go to ips.monster. I put it on the main page. I have a box of them here and a couple of other books as well. And the book tour begins next week. And I'm going to do it throughout the entire year. It's going to be not just sitting there signing books. We're doing conferences, more or less. Nothing expensive, no hotels. I'm talking like rooms that I can use from libraries, inviting specific guests over. And these will be live streamed conversations and debates about specific topics. But the frame of reference that I'll be using in my argumentation is all coming from Autohoaxology 101. And I think the concepts stand on their own. And many of the things we're going to debate and things we're going to discuss aren't even understood or recognized as debatable by people who just accept things, who are believers. And this culture of disbelief, which we have been fomenting, is new. I mean, this is beyond fringe conspiracy. In fact, we're the opposite of conspiracy theorists, if you think about it. And to make this clear, and this is what the book describes, is that if you're just walking around with the digital veil, everything seems normal. There's no conflict, there's no cognitive dissonance. The world mostly aligns with it. And the places where it doesn't, you have experts to trust that they're providing you with facts. But the people who don't trust it, who delve into conspiracy theory, who fall down rabbit trails, they actually go deeper. They don't reject the basic story. They think there's more to it. So without rejecting the unestablished premise, they add on to it. And this is the opposite of objectivity, and it's the opposite of any kind of pathway to truth, because what you'll find is that the alternative media is nothing more than the controlled opposition and establishment friendly counter narratives. Mostly a bunch of straw men that they can easily take down, and a bunch of leaders you can fall behind who will Judas goat you into some really bad positions, like the January Sixers. And then, of course, you get smeared. Like, oh, I'm a MAGA. Oh, you mean like the guy with the buffalo horns and the spear and the white power tattoos who ran around like a fool on January 6th? You're one of those. One of those people who believe that JFK is coming back from the dead. No, no, no. I'm not those ones, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to disassociate from those or the MAGA ban and where they're going. And the MAGA ban isn't just going through a satanic panic and a streak of Jew hate. The MAGA ban type also are against the age of consent because they don't think there's enough babies being produced, and they're going to college and becoming feminists. So they want to prevent that, and they want to lower the age of consent. So they're going this trad value direction, the complete opposite of the progressive. My point being, just my main point here is that truthers are getting thrown deeper into the world stage matrix, and they're caught up in the political horseshoe, and they're being pandered to. Specifically, I think the whole MAGA thing made a point to reach all the conspiracy theorists and turn them into Trump voters, which again is dragging you into the world stage deception, all the bread and circuses. By stark contrast, the skeptic rejects the screen at face value. So they're not looking for additional information about who did it or what country used the space laser to do this event. Rather, we're rejecting the essential claims, which again puts us in a position of being non-believers. Jay Digg says, as we speak, Dom Luker is currently releasing a bunch of Pizzagate stuff. Yeah, they're bringing back Pizzagate and Epstein stuff. I haven't. Here we go. Q Talk. Here we go, fam. Buckle up. It's happening for real this time, not like the other times. It's always tomorrow. Military in full control. I love Q Talk. Q Talk follows a lot of the big Q promulgators, and these are all propagandists. And they find that, look, if you go back through their accounts, they're saying, hey, Patriots, it's happening soon. Peace is coming. Our military is keeping POTUS safe and removing evil worldwide. December 2020. And you find the same posts verbatim 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later. We're talking 5, 6, 7 years of recycled Q drops, and this is all just hopium. The greatest military intelligence operation of our time, Q. Does anybody still believe this? I don't know, but the channels promoting it are huge. Q is big business, that's for sure. But we're seeing a whole lot of hopium out there. The Great Awakening is going to happen. Everyone gets hyped up. They spend their weekend clicking and generating ad revenue for Pope Elon. And then by Monday, it's all going to be over. Shadow of Urza says the underground tunnels that were discovered under a synagogue have been closed up. No media coverage. No updates. No real investigation. Right, it's been censored. Okay, let's continue. They get hyped up about stuff. It doesn't happen. And they tend to say it's been censored. It's like, no, it was a nothing burger. You're responding to a rumor mill. By the way, I have some really good news. Mass shootings are a contemporary myth. It's a state created martyr cult. Like, this is really good news. But I got this video I want to play really quick for those who are watching. It's about a minute long. Actually, I'll just play the second half, and for those listening, it looks like a school shooting, but then it becomes a musical. Real compelling stuff.
Can you hear freedom calling,
So in comes the Adam Lanza,
calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on.
and I don't want to get copyrighted, so I'm going to turn the music off. But then you have the teacher and a bunch of students. They get up to confront the shooter, and they break out into dance. Very dramatic dance, interpretive. Like this is what they feel. This is what the mass shooter generation feels. All their ducking and covering. But you see the duck and cover of the students under the desks, and why are they ducking and covering? Because the big gun. And even though the school shooter is the bad guy with the gun, the good guy with the gun saves them. So they're still ultimately saved by the person with the gun. They run out with their hands up. But the duck and cover is all mind control programming and submission. Now here's the dance. But it really surprised me. I thought it was going to be a gory horror video, but it becomes the dance. Now, after I watched this, I just thought, okay, this is more indication that this is a state created martyr cult. It's a contemporary myth. This is why they do psyops. They create a worldview with all these narratives and these dynamics that they say exist, and people believe it. So they do believe they're victims. And in a way, they are. Anybody who had to do a duck and cover because of hyper realistic school shooting drills was subject to what I consider to be trauma induced mind control. And this is somewhat related. I found a video of Adam Lanza doing Dance Dance Revolution. I kind of thought it'd be kind of cool to mix these two videos together, where because they don't show the shooter's face, and you just bring in Adam, and he comes in here doing this super hyper dance. If you haven't seen it, it was circulating shortly after the event, and I suppose it's related. But I remember at the time they were even trying to blame Lanza's rampage on video games, which isn't something that I see very often. Blaming video games, blaming music. They've kind of moved beyond that. Now everything's being blamed on Discord. In fact, by the way, the Buffalo shooter who had a Discord diary, I think he just got the death penalty today. I'll see if I can find that. Psyopsicle says state sponsored abusive musical. Exactly. You know, for some reason, my Adam Lanza Dance Dance Revolution video is not playing. Probably not a coincidence. We'll move on for now. We have a few other things I want to get to. There you go with Stu Peters. So Key Relo said within the last week, hospitals started requiring masks for everyone, not just medical staff like before. And this is a point that Les Luther makes quite often about illusion warfare. This is where they make it real. Event 201, 2 into 1, where they merge the movie with reality, and the costume is a huge part of it. I would contend that what made 2020 possible was fashion. They used the psychology of setting a fashion trend in order to get people to adopt the PPE fashion and the socially distanced walking and everything else. But I would say it's mostly a conformist thing. But the power of fashion statements and wearing it on the face and outgrouping those who didn't and seeing the trend, the unstoppable wave of brainwashed signaling. I'm brainwashed, I'm brainwashed. That made it real. At that point, you're like, I think it's all fake. Well, everybody's wearing the costume, so good luck. Okay, continuing. This is a strange one. We've been doing a deep dive into what I call Christ typologies, like Joseph Atwill. He wrote Caesar's Messiah, and he noted this phenomenon of a person on the world stage in their historical exploits, or we'll say in today's parlance, I guess in their PR stunts, they happen to mirror some archetypal character. So, for example, I've described Elon Musk as being Iron Man, Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka, and a bit of Von Braun. Like you can find the aspects of the character. Jeff Bezos is clearly Nimrod, builder of the Tower of Babel. But Trump has been consistently typed as a Christ in various contexts. The martyrdom thing, as unbelievable as it is, and if anything is antichrist, but the fact of it is, he has been described as Christ-like and compared to Christ, as distasteful as that is. But this is a very common phenomenon on the world stage. And interestingly, and this was shared by Mr. Trustworthy, he says this will open the door to re examine every time Jesus is mentioned in a movie. Perhaps those other explanations have dual meanings as well. And so this is the movie Jeepers Creepers. And this is a horror movie. It has to do with some monster that shows up every 23 years and has a collection of dead people in a cave that it has embalmed in some grotesque, just kind of like a throne room. I mean, I watched the movie, but interestingly, the Jeepers Creepers Jesus Christ connection. So I remember the one eye symbolism on that, which is very common in many movies, the one eye symbol. And this is from We Are Woke TV. One eye symbol on the right tells you it has deeper meaning. The movie is Hollywood and the Catholic Church's depiction of Jesus Christ. If you haven't seen it, or if you have, I suggest you rewatch it, he says. People think this movie is just about a flesh eating creature, but it's about Jesus. Whether you believe in him or you don't, the whole point is to show you deeper meanings behind the films. It also has a lot of 9/11 symbolism, and it was released 2 weeks before the towers collapsed. That's fascinating. Very, very interesting. But now, when you look into it, when the movie begins, you see the bad guy in the movie wearing this wide brimmed hat, but he's on a cross like a scarecrow. And the definition of Jeepers Creepers is a play on Jesus Christ. Jeepers Creepers is used as an expression or feeling or emotion or surprise, excitement, dismay. It's a variant of a 19th century slang term Jeez, which is a shortening of Jesus. And Jeepers Creepers is a form of Jesus Christ. Now we're going through just a few shots of the movie. A shot where the antagonist is on a cross between two scarecrows, like Jesus between the two. And I would even say that the corn has some relevance to sun god symbolism and Osiris. The hat, the Saturno hat, worn by Catholics, represents Saturn. A Capello Romano Roman hat, Saturno, because its appearance is reminiscent of the ringed planet Saturn. It's a clerical hat with a wide, circular brim and a rounded crown, worn outdoors in some countries by Catholic clergy when dressed in a cassock. So they're pointing out that the bad guy in the movie is dressed up like a member of the Catholic clergy. And now there's a few points in here where the character says Jesus Christ, and this is what the point of the here we go. The post is here that there's some kind of connection in movies where when they say Jesus Christ, it's not just an explanation, it may be a hint to the subtext. I'll give you a few examples here directly from the movie. Now, I've noticed this phenomenon before. In Westworld Season 3, near the end, there's a couple of scenes where this character says, "Oh my God," and another scene, "Oh my God," and each time I see the same thing in the background, which is it's a hexagon symbol, like from a beehive. But there's like a sort of a 666 in each of these scenes where they say, "Oh my God." Very interesting. Anyway, not to go too much further in this, but this is an example which made me think about Joaquin Phoenix. And there's a great video here, and I'm going to put a link in the chat. I suggest everybody watches it because this one's like 30 minutes. And this is about Joaquin Phoenix, Jesus Christ symbolism. Now, I want to point out, too, that The symbol of the phoenix has been synonymous with Jesus. It's always been like a Christian symbol from early on. Same with the rooster. So it's just important to keep in mind here the death, resurrection, etc. And here's Joaquin Phoenix. He plays many roles where he's referred to as Jesus Christ. And this is all just done as part of what I would consider to be their archetype. Like you have typecasting, I think it's archetype casting. Like we talk about Jim Carrey, another JC, where across multiple movies, his role is connected with the dog star, with Sirius, the number 23, even the Truman Show. The dog star falls and wakes him up from his spell. Well, that follows him across many films. Well, similarly, Joaquin Phoenix has a lot of Jesus Christ symbolism encoded in all his movies, and this has nothing to do with the plot of the films. Even the one 8 millimeter where he's working at an adult video porn store, even that one, there's all kinds of Christ symbolism. In fact, he's even literally crucified on a St. Andrew cross in one of the scenes. This video is by LXXXVIII Finis Temporis. I highly recommend subscribing to Finis Temporis here. And he compiled 25 minutes worth of various videos where you see Joaquin Phoenix.
Celebrity cartoonist John Callahan.
John Callahan, JC. And in this film, he is shown seemingly crucified in some kind of a brace for his entire body, a full body cast, deeply in pain and suffering. And as you'll hear, the name Jesus Christ is spoken in context. Crosses are referenced. But again, this follows him. Okay, even the Joker movie. And I noticed this in the Joker movie. And let me jump over to that poster really quick. There was a poster for the Joker where he's walking with his arms out, like Jesus, again. And he's got a aura of flame around him. So he's like a burning, walking phoenix. But also the cross. But this scene is from near the end of the movie when he's unconscious in the back of a cop car and he gets hit by an ambulance. And they pull him out and put him on the hood of the vehicle. And then he wakes up and he stands up and he puts his arms out like Jesus. And his hands are bloody from his mouth, making the smile. But they give him a stigmata. So that's the Joker movie where there's the Christ typology. But again, here we go. This is John Callahan.
You want me to help you get sober?
Well, I saw you speak, and I really like what you had to say about the two pairs of pants and the one with shit.
So, John, I know, and I don't know if you're serious.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I don't know if you're serious. And then he said, ah, Jesus Christ. Well, even serious, the dog star itself is not an unintentionally used word. Even when Joker in that poster, it's pretty famous, he says, why so serious? I've always taken that to mean the dog star. Dark Knight Rising was released around the time of Sirius Rising. I mean, these are not coincidences. Now, in this movie, he's writing something here. I am responsible for the agony of Christ. He's writing it again and again. Let me move on to the next one. Great collection here, though. And my point of bringing this up is that every single movie he's in has this as part of the subtext.
Wait a minute.
This is from 8mm with
Isn't that the same girl?
Nick Cage.
Look.
It is the same.
They're fakes.
That's great. Wow. Snuff 2, the resurrection. Oh boy.
I'm sorry, man. I told you Snuff was bogus.
Now, one more thing. He played Jesus. Now, here he is, Christ on the cross. I mentioned this. He's on a St. Andrew's cross. Again, Joaquin Phoenix being crucified.
There you are. Come and join us.
And he's recently been in Napoleon. And you can also find a pretty good body of research suggesting that Napoleon himself is a personification of the sun. all ties back to this idea of the Christ typology, which is really a sun personification typology. So there's a cross with a target on it, and then Joaquin Phoenix is put on it. That's from the movie 8 Millimeter. Another movie, To Die For. Again, Johnny Cash, JC. There's a lot of Jesus Christ references in this movie as well.
Where else?
In her car.
In her car.
Yeah.
Well, I put a link to the video below. I don't want to spend all night on this, but I'm just making the point that this level of programming goes beneath the awareness of the general public. It's esoteric. And not only is it esoteric, it's not like just a few movies here or there or some actors. It's ubiquitous with any of these big productions. So, what are we actually seeing here? Okay, continuing. A Tale of Two Sputniks. We were talking about the space, outer space, inner space connections. We may get to that, but I think we had some more pressing things to get to first. I mentioned entrainment, and entrainment is in the biomusicological, musica, biomusical logical sense. I guess if you're a musicologist, you would know what this means. So in this sense, there's this synchronization that occurs with rhythms, human music, and dance. And so entrainment is being aligned with this stuff, like hypnotized in a sense, I guess you could say. But humans, according to this, are the only species for which all individuals experience entrainment, although there are documented examples of entrained non-human individuals, according to Wikipedia. But my point of it is the topic of tonight's live stream about the perpetual crisis cycle. This is what I mean. There's an entrainment process where people get habituated to the up and down, and they synchronize with the media. And this was very evident with 9/11, for example, where one event in one city on the big world can get everybody looking and thinking the same thing, responding as one. And it is this entrainment that I think is the main purpose of the deluge of news, the never ending flood of information and crisis after crisis, the current thing, the never ending sequence of current things. There's so many things to care about. I mean, how do people have any F's left to give? But it's called entrainment, and auto hoaxing breaks the media entrainment because you could only be entrained if you are automatically believing and accepting and not refuting everything, claim by claim. Michelle Kastner posted this on YouTube. She said Ethan Hawke's daughter Maya plays a main character in Stranger Things. Maya Hawke. Okay, she plays Robin Buckley in Stranger Things. Interesting note there. The reason why this is interesting is we were discussing Ethan Hawke from the movie Leave the World Behind and the significance of his character and his t-shirt. You know, that movie, Leave the World Behind, has been taken apart by people scene by scene more than almost any movie I've seen. And it's interesting because it's just chock full of predictive programming. Everything that's happening with the planes being grounded is right from the movie. Everything that happens with the Tesla in the movie is happening in real life. And I'm looking at this thinking, this is like the most clear example of predictive programming we've ever seen. It's also very ham-fisted. But it's not enough to just, look at these things as anomalous. This is why people miss the point. Like, oh, this movie foreshadows things. Well, no, everything is a part of it. But specifically, Leave the World Behind has a lot of truthers focused on the coming blackout, the coming civil war. But what they tend to miss, again, is that these movies aren't foreshadowing real calamity. It's telling us what they're going to stage, and that's what's coming. How Charlie Kirk plans to discredit Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Act. So if you're wondering what MAGA meant, Make America Great Again, like again as far as when, like when was it great? Like pre-civil rights? I heard some liberal podcast saying, yeah, they want to drag us back to pre-civil rights. And I thought, no, that's just liberals smearing right-wing people as racist. There's no way that anybody's going to make any kind of serious moves to pushing back against that. And here you have Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk is preparing to launch a campaign against MLK and the landmark civil rights law he helped enact. Now, I'm sure they have some nuanced explanation, but the point of it is this is happening now, and it's going to have blowback really fast. So here we go. For decades, conservatives have pointed to King and his idea that people should not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character as a model for equality. But for Kirk, he had a shift on King, and this is a glimpse into a broader strategy meant to discredit the civil rights leader and the landmark legislation, the Civil Rights Act of 1964. He says, I have very, very radical views on this, but I can defend it. We made a huge mistake when we passed the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s. So obviously this is inflammatory. A couple of things here. One, Charlie Kirk is the founder of or co-founder of Turning Point USA. Turning Point USA is a conservative political action group. They do these rallies, and I think Turning Point is specifically a reference to the Turner Diaries. And the turning point is when they, the New World Order, comes to take the guns, resulting in the white nationalists rising up and nuking everybody else. We're talking about the Turner Diaries, this helter-skelter story that gets triggered at the turning point. And this all goes back to Waco. Significantly, Trump kicked off his campaign in Waco. Waco is where Dave Koresh, whose followers thought he was Jesus, was incinerated at 33. And again, Jesus, incineration, fire like a phoenix, 33. The symbolism here is very consistent with what we were just talking about, the Joker thing. And Dave Koresh obviously didn't really die. That was totally fake. But moving on from that, that is the event where Alex Jones got his start. That is where he got radicalized. He helped build the Branch Davidian complex after the fire. Timothy McVeigh got his start there as well. Timothy McVeigh was motivated by Waco and inspired by the Turner Diaries in his own terror attack in Oklahoma City. And again, he was executed at 33, 90 days before 9/11. So, pulling this all together, Waco, Trump's campaign, the final battle, he called it, Dave Koresh, Alex Jones, Timothy McVeigh, there's a picture emerging here. Now, earlier last year, there was the death of Terry Nichols, and it was compared to the death of Rodney King, well, the beating of Rodney King. Nichols died. So, Tyree Nichols, killed like Rodney King. The video looked like the Rodney King beating. Totally fake, though. This one looked so fake. But the protests resulted in I-55 shutting down. Then Martin Luther King Jr.'s daughter shows up and joins the protests against the police. So Tyree Nichols is now associated with Rodney King and Martin Luther King because of his daughter. His eulogy is delivered by Al Sharpton at Mason Temple, where Martin Luther King gave his final speech about the Promised Land, and this is before his death on 4/4. Now, fast forward, on 4/4, it was the 55th anniversary of MLK's assassination when Donald Trump was arraigned. If you remember that during his arraignment, Joker 2 was being filmed in front of that very courthouse. So the Joker 2 reference is also noteworthy here because that was the day that Heath Ledger, who played the previous Joker, would have turned 44. Interesting combination here of events. Again, Trump compared to Jesus for Holy Week that week, mocked as Jesus, arrested, and he shows up to where the Joker 2 is being filmed on the 44th anniversary, the 44th birthday of Heath Ledger, and the 55th anniversary of Martin Luther King's assassination. Now, the date 4-4, Joker 2, think Jesus Part 2, and the number 44 all connect. 4 is a cross. You put 4-4, it's a double cross, like XX. The double cross represents one rung is death, one is resurrection. So it's all encoded in this thing. One more thing. Weeks before this 55th anniversary of MLK's assassination, we had the incident where 55-year-old Jamie Foxx, whose name contains two X's, resurrection symbolism, he dies and is resurrected. He died on set and came back to life. This was like a kind of a story going around in the weeks leading up to a new movie that came out called They Cloned Tyrone, starring Jamie Foxx. About, well, think about the symbolism. Tyrone, think Tyree Nichols. The names are all connecting here. But he was cloned, meaning he was brought back from the dead. Or there's a double. So you're talking about resurrection symbolism here, tied in with Jamie Foxx, who happened to be 55. And one more point on this, because this was pretty heavy last year. Right after the protests of the police shut down I-55, a chunk of the sun broke off at the 55-degree latitude. The sun is another way of representing the crown. In other words, the king, the crown, a headshot, for example. So here's I think we have an article from last year about this, about part of the sun falling off. Strange, unprecedented vortex spotted around the sun. No, not that one. It was actually last year, 2023, and they specifically said, yeah, did a chunk of the sun just break off? A piece of the sun broke away and got swept up in a polar vortex. So again, I'm looking at the symbolism, the killing of the king, Rodney King. You know, Rodney King was hit 33 times. You can see this on Wikipedia. So I look into this thing, I'm like, wait a minute. You're telling me at the time of this Tyree Nichols I-55 being shut down, the sun is having a chunk fall off. And it says here, talk about polar vortex. Material from a northern prominence just broke away from the main filament and is circulating in a massive vortex around the star. Anyway, it goes on to say, implications for understanding the sun's atmosphere dynamics above 55 degrees cannot be overstated. So a chunk of the sun fell off. Again, just consistent symbolism above and below. All tying into Donald Trump's arraignment. But getting back to where we are now, the childhood home of Martin Luther King, the house where he grew up, was nearly set on fire by an arsonist. This was recent. Woman seen trying to set fire to MLK birth home. This is a month ago. A bystander stopped a woman from burning the home where Martin Luther King Jr. was born. Now, this stood out to me as very symbolic because he made a statement about the burning house. And this is I believe, a reference to the West and systemic racism and is it a lost cause? He said, I fear I am integrating my people into a burning house. Now, that statement, I believe, is reference in the burning house ceremony that Ye did, Ye West. And he made a reference to smoke in the burning house. So the burning house to me is the West. And it's represented in the movie Westworld with the burning chapel. It's represented with Donde in the burning house that Ye did. And then here again, Martin Luther King Jr.'s home burning. And there was another one as well, Beyonce. her childhood house. Beyonce's childhood home catches fire on Christmas, tied right in there with the solstice. So the burning house symbolism with MLK in particular got me thinking Martin Luther King is going to show up in the news. There's going to be something with MLK as there was in 2020 in the midst of the BLM riots. There was a 57th anniversary MLK's I Have a Dream speech gathering. So I'm looking at this thinking, okay, Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Act is now being opposed directly by Turning Point USA. This can only turn into something, some kind of conflagration. This doesn't uh, go by quietly, if you ask me. And this is from Wired.com again, how Charlie Kirk plans to discredit MLK and the Civil Rights Act. The courts have been really weak on this, Kirk told the America Fest crowd. Federal courts yield to the Civil Rights Act as if it's the actual Constitution. Now, this is all intriguing. We'll see where this goes. Kirk's comments at America Fest were merely a preview of his attacks on King. He recently said he plans to release content to discredit MLK on January 15th, King's birthday, which is a U.S. federal holiday. Quote, "We're going to be hitting him next week on the day of the Iowa caucus. It's MLK Day. We're going to do the thing you're not supposed to do. We're going to tell the truth about MLK Jr." Something to look forward to. Now, this is also interesting. I was listening to Human Events Daily with Jack Posobiec in the podcast, and they were talking about the 1960s and how problematic the Civil Rights Act was or is in their view. The attacks on King show how Turning Point USA has become more willing to indulge on extreme issues. A decade ago, when he was launching it, they avoided hot button issues like race or abortion, but now they're unrestrained. This is not dog whistle politics, it's blatant and intended to cause outrage. That is the point. Now, one final point here. And, I've been talking about the numbers. You've heard me from the very beginning. I-55, 55th anniversary, 55-year-old Jamie Foxx, 55 latitude sun chunk falling off. Look at this. Turning Point USA's website is selling a $55 t-shirt with MLK's name that says, "Let Freedom Ring." There's a consistency here, which is why we use the term metascript. A $55 t-shirt with MLK's name. I have a metascript mind map for the number 55 because it was showing up so consistently last year that to me it was suggesting something with Trump. Because you see, Trump was compared to Jesus, yeah, but then he was compared to Moses. And I thought Promised Land, MAGA, probably the same thing. And after he was compared to Moses, he was then compared to King David. I think we're still waiting for his apotheosis, where they just call him God. That's got to be coming soon. All right, let's continue. I'll put a link in the chat one more time if you want to get a signed copy of Autohoaxology 101. Book tour is going to begin. And eventually, it'll go on sale on Amazon and all the other booksellers. But we're selling it directly from the headquarters, every copy signed, for the remainder likely of this year. When the second edition comes out, then we'll allow the first one to be more widely distributed. And this is the basis for what I would contend is an intellectual revolt. And this is how I believe you would actually, quote, resist. If you want to resist the ubiquitous mind control machinations of the one world order system, you don't resist by becoming a propaganda mule for the controlled op. You resist by opting out, by engaging in skepticism, but applied skepticism with full knowledge of what we're actually being skeptical about. It's not the selective, cherry-picked events. No, it's big picture. And so if you look at it from that perspective, you could say that we're the core or nucleus of what could be described as a philosophical movement or I guess you could call it an intellectual revolt. Because what are we revolting against? Insults to our intelligence. This cartoon is real. Trust the screen. Don't think for yourself. Your perceptions don't matter. We override them with what we put on your digital veil. I'm like, no thanks. Here's something from the WEF about disease X. They say it's going to be 20 times deadlier than COVID. Now, what's 20 times zero?
The British government has unveiled a new vaccine research facility where scientists are working to prevent future pandemics. It's located at Portondown, a high-security research facility best known for its work on chemical warfare. Experts are preparing for what is known as Disease X, or the next pandemic virus. Our health correspondent Dominic Hughes was given rare access.
Now, the claim is about disease X. It's actually a reference to a new hypothetical unknown pathogen. There actually is no reference, or rather, there is no source for what she's saying. There is no thing that's been discovered yet. This is BBC News hyping a nothing burger. However, disease X, in my view, is mind viruses spreading from X. That's what X is here for. That's why every morning I go on to X and I post, "Good morning, disease X." In fact, I did that today, and someone had noted this article about disease X, and they asked me, they said, "How long have you been doing this? How long have you been posting Good morning, disease X?" And my response was, I started doing this when Twitter became X and established itself as the primary vector for mind viruses. Subscribe at IPS Insider. That's my Twitter account, and you can get the morning post, the Good Morning Disease X posts. I've been doing this for a while, and I'm making the point again that the next pandemic is a cyber pandemic. It's a mind virus pandemic. It's about censorship. It's not going to be a reboot of 2020. They've made the case for the existence of the mind virus. Thanks to Elon Musk, who is not a free speech absolutist or free speech crusader, but is in fact a saboteur, a fall guy for free speech. They've blamed the last few shootings on free speech, whether it's Discord or it's Reddit causing leftists to go wild, but they've made this case and both sides have accepted it. You got the far right saying, "Oh, Reddit's making leftists into trans ideologists and they go shoot up Christian schools." And then the other side says, "Discord is churning out right-wing racist shooters." So both sides agree disease X, the mind viruses, need to be stopped. And this is the premise. And they got you to accept in 2020 that the most dangerous person was the super spreader, the healthy super spreader. I'm healthy. I show no symptoms. I'm a asymptomatic super spreader, which makes it look like I'm safe to be around, but I could potentially endanger people with compromised immune systems. Therefore, I am dangerous because I'm so healthy. Similarly, those of us who are mentally healthy, who can have discussions about ideas, yeah, we can do this because we have no mental illness. We can just talk about this stuff. However, the people who are mentally ill can catch mind viruses from us. That's their premise. That we may not be susceptible to the mind viruses, but somebody with a weaker mental immune system will be. And instead of saying, well, they need to stay out of the discussions if it's harmful to them, instead of saying they need to opt out, they're saying instead that no, we, the mind virus super spreaders, need to mask our minds. We need to lock down. And why is that? It's because the people with weak mental immune systems catch our mind viruses and they murder people, or they become radicalized into extremism and cause terrorism. My point is, when, not if, when they push the button on the whole white nationalist, domestic violent extremist mushroom cloud on Seattle, or wherever they do it, whenever the new Timothy McVeigh strikes, they're going to blame the X. They're going to blame Musk. They're going to blame the far right. And they're going to say, you created this monster. In the same way that radical Islam was characterized as these jihadis on a holy war that need to be stopped. So too, domestic violent extremism and the MAGA ban has all been created so the public will accept the existence of this threat. And they'll say it was created through the internet and the free flow of information. And the vector for this mind virus that resulted in a nuke was X. Joined by Tim and Vic 131 says, I'm late. You can catch the replay and the archives get mailed out nightly. I'm trying to spend more time here at the office. I've been doing a lot of artwork recently to get my eBay store back up. But now that I'm about to kick off the book tour, this is my priority. And I think that Autohoaxology 101 could easily find itself in the hands of at least 10,000 people in the know over the course of the next year. And what we're doing is we're creating a parallel media. This raft is going to metastasize. There's no going back. We've already crossed that line. We already know what we know, and we've left the world of believers, but not by climbing their Illuminati dung heap pyramid and signing our names in blood, but rather by thinking for ourselves and stepping back away from the screen. You see, only initiates are supposed to have their digital hoodwink removed, that digital veil. Only the people who are given security clearance are allowed to be let in on the know about all this stuff. But here we are, apprised of the sensitive information that only the people at the capstone level of the government, media, academia, entertainment complex are at. But we didn't have to climb. It's very Promethean in a sense, if you think about the idea of this character stealing the fire of the gods from Mount Olympus and going down and lighting up civilization. That's kind of what we're talking about here. This isn't conspiracy conjecture. It's not paranormal. This is privileged information. And it's information that's above the heads of 99.9% of the mass media operatives out there. All these propaganda mules. Like, we're in the know, and the truthers are honestly the least in the know about the stuff because they don't want to know. They're married to the nightmare version of things. But I'm thinking this year is the year we'll be breaking this. And again, to reiterate what I said earlier, the primary weapon of the power elite is fear. You could say it's violence and terrorism, but I'm like, well, we've seen fake blood and special effects. So until you can prove otherwise, it's fear. And referencing Saul Alinsky's rule number 9, the threat of the thing is more effective and terrifying than the thing itself. And we see this every single day. All right, joined by 777, Max Carter, Lean Dion. Thanks for joining. Tomorrow's going to be Infinite Plane Saturday, and we will be live tomorrow. We'll probably take a lot of calls. We didn't get to too many of them today. But the main thing is, again, the books. So if you go to ips.monster, I added links to the new books. We have, in fact, I have a copy of The Schism in Everything, 2022, from a Metascript perspective. And that's a compilation of all of the blog posts that I made at timosman.blog for the year of 2022. Secret Religion of the Elite, 2nd edition, and Autohoaxology 101. I'll put a link below if you want to pick any of these up. And if you've ordered already, you're awaiting a book, or you don't have it, or you need tracking, let me know. I'm making sure that anybody who's waiting on anything gets priority. So again, feel free to email me, and I'll be responding to those likely tonight. And I'm really working toward getting the mornings opened up for the IPSD program, and it's going to become increasingly necessary as we move forward into the next phase of what we're doing here with the IPS think tank. And look, ironically, we got an ad here from Sandy Hook Promise.
When the gunman shot his way into Sandy Hook Elementary School on December 14th, 2012.
Anyway, we'll skip that. This is Auto Hoax or GTFO. Have a great night. this supposedly very easy thing to do. It's just go use the app and see it.
It's not easy.
They couldn't do it. None of them were able to do it. So we're still, it's not like we're not trying, but we don't have anybody who can prove it yet.